If you have knee pain, there's a decent chance that you've over-prioritized using your quad muscles and hinging through the knees rather than through the hips. So what does that mean? Oftentimes when people stand up from a chair, they're going to put the weight on the front of their feet, right? And they're gonna bring their knees over their toes, and they're gonna do this, and they're gonna stand up like this. And when we come forward through our knees, if I go to squat and the first thing I do is this, okay? I'm asking my knees to take the pressure of this movement. But if I take my butt and I push it back like this, and my knees remain more vertical, I'm teaching my hips to take the brunt of the movement, okay? And this is really important. You see a lot of people talking about, making sure to strengthen this knees over toes range of motion. That is important. But first, you have to learn how to prioritize moving through the hip, and then you can learn how to prioritize moving through the knee. And most people have that backwards. So when we go to stand up from a chair, instead of putting the weight on our toes and bringing our knees forward and standing up with a more upright torso, we want to do this. We want to plant the heels. You can even lift your toes if you want to remind yourself that this is primarily a heel movement. Knees are going the same direction as your toes. Bow forward from the hips, so belly button goes towards the thighs. You can use your hands for support if you need to, or not if you don't want to. Press the heels into the ground, and you're gonna see how I'm hinging through the hip. So this motion is not a knee extension like this, it's a hip extension like this. And these muscles here, glutes, the hamstrings, they're so much stronger than the other muscles that are surrounding your knee. And so we wanna learn how to hinge through the hip and not necessarily hinge through the knee, okay? And so the last piece of this is we talked about weight distribution on the feet. We talked about knees going the same direction as your toes. And now I want to revisit what I just said at the end of there, which is hinging through the hip, okay? So knees are going the same direction as toes, putting the weight distribution on my heels, and then how do we learn how to hinge through the hip, okay? We start by pushing our butt backwards, okay? So the best way for people to practice this is this. Imagine there was somebody standing behind you and you wanted to knock them over, right? And you needed to do it like this, boom, and you push your butt back like that. That's how I want you to initiate any sort of sit to stand squat motion. Push the butt backwards, and that automatically puts the weight on the heels. Now look down, are my knees going the same direction as my toes? Yes. Now keep that motion going backwards as you sit down in the chair, and then reverse the motion as you stand up. And that's how we start to learn how to hinge through the hips. When we take the pressure off the knees by hinging through the hips, when we put the pressure on the heels, which also aids with hinging through the hips, and when we make sure the knees are going the same direction as your toes, your knees will feel so much better. So for everybody out there who has knee pain, start by treating these rules as something you want to practice every time you stand up from a chair. So every time you stand up from a chair, just pause. Weight on the heels, knees over toes, hinge to the hips, stand up from the chair, right? Every time you go to sit down, same thing. Butt goes back, knees over toes, weight in the heels, sit down in the chair, okay? You sit down and stand up a lot of times throughout the day. And so treat this as an opportunity to practice proper movement, because when you move your body better, you feel better in your body.